Today, I prepared to talk to you all while my 11-year-old daughter ran around the loop of our house yodeling. Or at least that's what I thought it sounded like. At the top of her lungs because she was bored. This is a standard normal practice for her. As a younger child, she had difficulty focusing on instructions, homework, and even basic morning routines. These behaviors are common in my family, so I was not surprised when we took her to the psychiatrist's office and they diagnosed her with ADHD. Once we received a diagnosis, I went into research mode. Through internet research, self help books, and even supportive mom groups, I would like to share with you the definition and history of ADHD, the symptoms and treatment options associated, and the different psychological beliefs about the disorder. Thanks to the pandemic, I have had the unique opportunity to work from home for the past year. I watched as my daughter was tasked with virtual schooling, which is similar to what we're doing in college right now. Watching her manage her assignments, Zoom conference calls, and homework has been daunting. In observing her conference calls, there were many children doing different activities. Some were petting their dogs, others were running in and out of the screen, and some were even holding additional conversations with their parents or siblings while the teacher tried to capture their attention. In current times, more and more children are struggling to remain focused than ever before. Medical professionals have been studying the cause of childhood inattentiveness and impulsivity for decades. So, what is this phenomenon? According to the encyclopedia published in 1998 and updated in 2020 by Britannica Encyclopedia, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, or ADHD, is defined as a behavioral syndrome characterized by inattentiveness and distractibility, restlessness, inability to sit still, and difficulty concentrating on one thing for any given period of time. Some behaviors of the disorder include making hasty decisions without first thinking, inability to sustain focus, and excessive fidgeting, tapping, moving around, or even talking. Sounds like a lot, right? ADHD is actually one of the most common childhood neurodevelopmental disorders and has been studied as far back as the 1700s. According to the World Journal of Psychiatry's article, Who Says This Is a Modern Disorder? The Early History of Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder, written by Jose Martinez Badia and published in 2015. One of the first causes of the disorder was classified as a minimal brain damage in 1901 by a pediatrician named Sir George Still. His findings show that some children could not control their behavior as well as other children, despite their intelligence level being similar. 30 years ago, doctors started to find that the performance of the hyperkinetic impulse disorder child in school was directly affected by the inattentiveness. This led to the establishment of a symptom of the disorder. By the 1980s, medical professionals published the disorder as two subtypes: attention deficit disorder with hyperactivity and attention deficit disorder without hyperactivity. They determined that not all cases of the disorder exhibited the motor-like uncontrollable movements. Today, ADHD is classified as a mental health disorder, and researchers have identified a list of symptoms, developed a scale of behaviors to properly identify the diagnosis, and they have some theories on the causes of the disorder. Although there is no known cause for ADHD, the National Institute of Mental Health website, published in September of 2019 by the U.S. Department of Health, states that the medical professionals believe that genetics, cigarette smoking, alcohol or drug use during pregnancy, brain injuries, lower birth weight, and exposure to toxins at a young age contribute to the child's diagnosis. Now that we know what ADHD is, let's discuss how it can be treated. Because ADHD is a mental health issue, treatment options can vary and they're on a case-by-case basis. Medications are a common treatment that the doctors utilize to help children focus better. Typically, most medications prescribed for ADHD are considered stimulants and can help the child by adjusting the chemical levels in their brain on thinking and learning. Another less likely option is non-stimulants, which can help better manage a child's focus, attention, and impulsivity while being slowly released into their system. Finally, antidepressants are rarely prescribed, but an option specifically if the child diagnosed has side effects while on stimulants or non-stimulants. Therapy is most likely the first step after diagnosis. There are multiple types of therapy recommended for children with ADHD. Behavioral therapy is aimed to modify the child's bad behaviors. Cognitive behavioral therapy focuses on mindfulness techniques such as meditation to help the child with impulsivity and teach them how to adjust to changes. Family counseling is available to help the parents and child adjust to all the behavioral changes, and also parenting classes are often offered to the adults for additional support. Despite ADHD being defined as a mental health disorder, medical professionals argue its existence. Especially with today's generation of impatience and instant gratification, doctors are having a hard time believing in a disorder with an inconsistency of data. What factors contribute to this unbelievability? Society heavily markets phone applications to children like TikTok, a short loop video that lasts no less than 30 seconds. Because of this newfounded technology, we are able to have a shorter attention span. This shorter attention span can cause impatience and impulsivity in the children's Zoom conferences. Other technology fueling the fire of impatience is Amazon Prime. It is socially acceptable to pay a monthly or annual fee to have items shipped to you within a day or two. The standard time frame to ship an item is typically 7 to 10 business days. Due to the trends of these societal must-haves, medical professionals are questioning if ADHD has been misdiagnosed. Some psychologists believe that the misdiagnosis is based on not understanding the reasons behind the child's behavior. In an example written and published in March of 2015 by Robert Berezin, a psychiatrist with 40 years of experience in the field and a teacher at the Department of Psychiatry at the Cambridge Hospital, a student was having difficulty reading. He has a different learning technique which involves reading the words out loud first and then reading them again to be able to comprehend the information. When taking a test, he was unable to read the words out loud first, so he was unable to comprehend the material. This caused him to daydream, which is perceived as an attention issue. This was diagnosed as a brain disease instead of an alternate way of learning, and therefore he could be medicated for the foreseeable future based on a wrongful interpretation. Other psychologists, such as published author Thomas Armstrong, PhD, who has over 30 years experience in psychology, published an article in 2017 titled, "Why I Believe Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder is a Myth," found that the inconsistency of data provided, context of reasoning behind the behavior, and methods of testing led to ADHD being a myth. The rating scale provided to parents and teachers of the student heavily weighed on the responses and the questions of contextual nature. For example, Armstrong states that, quote, "A child might forget their homework when he dislikes the assignment, or because the teacher gave him assignment at the beginning of the day instead of the end of the day, or because the dog ate his homework." These medical professionals believe that the diagnostic tools are more subjective than they should be for something as serious as a psychological disorder. So, we have gone over the definition and the history of ADHD, the symptoms and the treatment options, and explained some other psychological beliefs about the disorder. While the jury is out on all medical professionals agreeing upon and acknowledging this mental health issue, thousands of children are being diagnosed with ADHD. My daughter was diagnosed at the age of 5, and I've been educating myself ever since. With all the information you have now, what do you think? Is ADHD truly a real diagnosis, or has society influenced these new socially acceptable behaviors?